Good afternoon, everybody. Just wanted to hop on here and let's get some updates out there. I'm Jed Green. I'm director here at ORCA, Oklahomans for Responsible Cannabis Action, and our group are the proponents of State Question 837. Hope everyone's doing well out there. I just wanted to first thank you, everyone across the state who is piling in, helping out. We're well over 450 locations statewide now. We're still working. There's a couple of you we're still scrambling to get packets to. Should have that done here in the next day or so. Phenomenal response early on to 837. For folks that are just tuning in, you can go to orca4ok.com and check out our interactive map that shows locations now in 63 counties across the state where you can go in and sign the petition. Another shout out to everyone that's getting out into all of the public events this weekend and going out and reaching out to all of our fellow Oklahomans to talk about what's going on with 837 and work on gathering those signatures. We are down to about 68, 69 days left in our 90 days to gather. So let's get out there and get those signatures, guys. What I wanted to hop on here and address today is I want to talk a little bit about some of the press coverage we saw a week ago regarding opposition to State Question 837, specifically by the Oklahoma Police Chiefs Association, and then also want to address some of the comments that were made by Director Donnie Anderson over at the Oklahoma Bureau of Narcotics. So let's, there's a lot to discuss here. What we're going to do is we're going to just kind of run through some of this in line item. I'm going to go off the top of my head. I've got a couple of notes. The police chiefs have put up, something on their webpage or Facebook that kind of details their opposition. So we'll just run through that. But what I would like to do is I'd like to first start off with our friends over at the Oklahoma Bureau of Narcotics and comments that were made last week regarding what's going on here. So what we saw was a press availability or press conference that was held at the Capitol, and we had the Bureau of Narcotics and we had the Oklahoma Police Chiefs Association folks were there together. Now, Director Anderson over at the Bureau of Narcotics, from what we saw, what was televised, had comments about regulating illegal activity, and including making a remark that they are working to drive legal operators out of business. Now, that is its own whole discussion that we need to have and we need to set to the side right now. We'd seen some discussion on that, and all I'm going to say to that right now is, in context, 3 letters, 1 term, COO. Moving forward, I want to go to specifically coverage that was on News 9 that had Director Anderson and the spokesman for the police chiefs. I'll get his name memorized here shortly, I'm sure. So they went on Channel 9 and they had a focus on public safety. Channel 9's really big on that. The comment that we got from most of the news channels was, hey, we got called to this press conference and, if it was about 837, why weren't you there? And I said, I don't know. I wasn't asked to be there. I came in from dropping off packets to talk to 4, 5, and 25 at their request about this. But on this particular piece, with Channel 9. Here's kind of what the concerns are that we have with it as far as OBN. And we're going to get into the police chiefs here in a minute because they're the ones that really had to say something. Now, first of all, in this piece, I want to be clear. Director Anderson violated no rules or laws in his comments. He's very keenly aware that state agencies are not allowed to use resources to engage in electioneering, be it a state question, candidate campaigns. They cannot come out and say we are for this or we are against this. And he walked the line mighty fine, okay? The issue, however, is, and this is going to be the basis of a complaint to the State Ethics Commission, simply a friendly complaint. We just want to make sure that everyone is on the same page here moving forward. Where OBN did, however, run afoul, in our opinion, of electioneering and campaign ethics is that they then posted this piece onto their Facebook page, which is considered a state resource. Now, while the director was in line, his counterpart with the police chiefs was openly against by name State Question 837. And that was pointed out by Director Anderson. I can't comment like that. That's your deal. Well, here's the problem. Here's a problem, OBN. By posting a one-sided piece, because we were not there. We were never asked by Channel 9 for any comment that day. Okay, that's fine. But by posting a one-sided piece, OBN, you are actually electioneering. There is a rule against that. Honestly, the easiest thing you could do would just be simply to take the post down, and that would resolve it. I don't imagine that you're going to do that at my request. And so what we're going to do is we're going to ask the Ethics Commission if this is allowable, if this is not. We'll see what they have to say, and we'll all move forward from there. It's not a big deal, but you know, we believe that you're in violation of campaign ethics rules. So we'll get to that. As far as commentary, the next thing that I want to talk about, that the most concerning thing in this particular piece that came out was OBN's fuzzy math. Director Anderson claimed that we are showing 87 million plants that have been grown, that all of them average a pound a plant, and that we have only seen 1.5 million pounds actually sold in through metric. Now, there are a number of things going on here. Number one, OMMA reports wet plants. These are, okay, all of these 87 million plants, before we jump into an erroneous conclusion that they all provide 1 pound per plant, therefore there are 87 million pounds, therefore 85 million pounds have gone to the black market. First, I know it's hard to kind of fathom, but the size of that pile would be enormous, okay? We might run the numbers on that just to show how outlandish that is. But here is the number one thing that's going on there. The first thing is that of those 87 million plants, how many of them actually made it to flower? Those could be clones, those could be immature plants. Let's say that they were all planted. How many of them didn't take transplant? How many died there? How many of these plants went down due to any variety of issues with cultivation before they were ever even harvested? The numbers are there. OMA should be able to show those plants. Where are those numbers? So that's got to come out of that 87 million. The next thing is in all of these numbers, and we saw this in the OMMA supply and demand study, what they do is they say, okay, here are these plants, here is the wet weight. They are obsessed with wet weight reporting, declaring that is the weight that was there, and then saying there must be, you know, this much has gone to the black market. They don't account for one. I mean, Director Anderson, I can tell you where the weight went. Evaporation. One word, evaporation. When a whole plant is harvested and dried, it loses at least 80% of its moisture content, therefore 80% of its weight. From there, all of that has to be cleaned up. No one is smoking, hopefully, unless they're getting 50-cent pre-rolls, no one is smoking stems and stalks. That's more weight that comes out of there. The next factor is that all of this has to be trimmed up. So if you said that we had 87 million pounds wet, we're already down to, I don't know, what does that come down to? We're down to maybe 20% of that. Realistically, by the time it's all cleaned up and you get all the stalks out, you're down to 8% of that number. From there, the other thing, and this was not accounted for in the OMA supply and demand study at all, concentrates. Half of this market is concentrates. It can take 25 to 50 pounds of marijuana to create 1 liter of concentrate. If you're doing fresh frozen and other things like that, it takes way more weight. So none of this has been accounted for. They're not accounting for the concentrate market. These numbers are wholly inaccurate. And so they claim that there's this 87 million pounds and there's this oversupply, and that's why we need to eliminate businesses to get it down to where we have 8 grows, because that takes care of everything. It's really tragic that just simple, basic math is being ignored. And it's not like we haven't been saying this to the agencies for 2 or 3 years, and yet they persist with throwing out incorrect numbers. If I was looking at an OBN registration, I would call this fraudulent numbers. They know better. I hope they do. If they don't, they have no business regulating this industry. When plants are harvested, they are dried. Any farmer out there can tell you that when plant material dries, it loses a lot of weight. Now, I can tell you where there is an oversupply, Director Anderson. It's in the gas stations, it's in the internet, and it's at DoorDash. Keep in mind, folks, we just got we're getting consumer safety testing back now from gummies that you can order from DoorDash. You know, folks come out and say they're against recreational, but this is the same law enforcement that has allowed recreational for 3 years, completely unregulated. So with that, that's kind of where we're at on OBN. Now let's talk about our neighbors over at the Police Chiefs Association. And this is where, the reefer madness is back. Bless their hearts, they just cannot help themselves run wild. Number one, guys, we're not even a state question yet, technically. We still have to get signatures. And I've been doing this for 20 years. Now, a lot of people have done it a lot longer, and I have yet to hear of or see a state question that is opposed while they're 2 weeks into getting signatures. I think that's a reaction to the effort that you guys are putting in. Keep it up. Keep up the good work. So we're going to take here real quick, and I'm going to just kind of pop down what we were hearing from the Police Chiefs Association as they literally argue against the self-interest or the best interests of their membership, much less the communities that they serve. It's pretty obvious that they didn't even read 837 before they commented. If they would have, they would look and see that 60% of the revenue coming from 837 goes to county and municipal governments, funding local law enforcement. It also makes plain that where THC can be sold. So they obviously haven't read it, and if they have, they don't understand it. And at this point, sirs, you are arguing against your own budget. So I see where the police chiefs have got something up here, so I'm going to go through that. Now, I also want to point this out on the campaign side of things. So we see where there's kind of a question with what OBN's done with electioneering. This is where it gets even more interesting. So y'all are familiar with Senate Bill 1027 that seeks to make our lives harder and so on and so forth. Well, with 1027, we're required to provide weekly reports of what we're expending, how much money we're spending to get 837 on the ballot. Now, there's no actual real reporting mechanism for that in place, but what is interesting here is while we're required to do this, we now have a non-governmental organization that is actively opposing 837 by name. Are they required to report? If we have to report what we're spending, why don't they have to report what they're spending? And this is one of the flaws with 1027. It's interesting to note, and if any of the folks from 836 catch this, we see that in the lawsuit, which is currently in abeyance at the Supreme Court, that may come through on 1027, one of the things that the folks with that lawsuit, 836 crowd, what they have noted is a problem with literally this situation right here, where we are required to report what we expend, but an outside entity can come in and start spending money and they don't have to report as well. Seems a little unfair. So now folks over on 836, there actually is a live fire drill where this is happening and you can see. Now, all of this goes to the question of, would we be harmed by this? Honestly, in this situation, arguably, they're helping us out. And here's why. What the police chiefs have come out with is so demonstrably false and just reefer madness. I just hope you guys will reach out to your local police chiefs and let them know that this type of activity isn't appreciated. And if they would stop and read it, they would see that they are literally arguing against public safety in their communities. You hear recreational, you go out, adrenaline rush junkie, go out there, attack. You're not helping the stereotype of law enforcement, guys. Let's let these guys know. So let's break this down just real quick. I don't want to belabor this too awful long, but, they threw a bunch of stuff at us, and we'll be back with more on this. So let's see. They call for our defeat. Let's see. 2 years ago, voters sent a clear message: Oklahoma does not support recreational marijuana. Okay, so here's the first place that police chiefs, you don't get it. And I believe it was said that on Channel 9, I believe the man said that 837 was already voted against. No, you're incorrect. That was 820. Here's the difference for the public at large. Why did 820 fail? Two big reasons. The biggest reason is that our industry was divided. There were a bunch of us that were not sold that a duplicate license system is what we needed. And so not only did folks oppose it, but there was no enthusiasm for a bill that we knew wasn't right for Oklahoma. Yes, this bill 820 was, primarily drafted and funded by out-of-state interests to the tunes of millions of dollars. And note this, opponents, supporters of 1027, we defeated that without needing to take away people's right to vote. So there's a huge difference there, general public. 820 was a wholly different bill than what 837 is. Totally different proposition. 837 is very streamlined. It does not create a duplicate system. It does not repeat mistakes of other states. It does not raise prices. It does not hinder consumer access. It does not hurt a medical program. In fact, it provides our medical patients with constitutional protections for the first time. Also, I'd like to address this. 837, regardless of what you just said, and if you ask anyone, police chiefs, ask around a little bit about what ORCA is and who we are. We are Oklahomans. 837 is a proposition by Oklahomans for Oklahomans. We are not a liberal out-of-state group. We are a group that encompasses the entire political spectrum in Oklahoma. We have friends on both sides of the aisle, under the aisle, and in the rafters. Okay? This is not about partisan politics. This is not an out-of-state group. And frankly, we find it insulting that you did so little homework on your chosen opposition that you just immediately come out and make a blanket statement like that. It is demonstrably false. It's really unfortunate. So we've got the record straight on that. Not out-of-state interest group. We opposed 820. And so this is where, guys, when you're gathering signatures for 837, this is why it is so important that in this and potentially a vote, we absolutely run up the score. When the talking heads tell the history of this down the road, All they were going to do is refer to one number, a percentage, just like 57% supported State Question 788. Well, now it's convenient to say 61% opposed 820. Everyone who helped oppose 820, we did a great job. Okay, now we need to do 3 times better a job supporting 837, and we need to run the score up. We need to run it up on signatures, and we need to run it up in the ballot box. There is no limit to signatures. Get everyone you can. There is no limit to votes. Get everyone registered. We have to get everyone to show up. If we simply do that, we win. It is a numbers game. So, when they go out and say, well, this failed, no one wants that, don't try again. That is so basic. That is so basic and has zero understanding. I hope that we're getting a little more information to folks out here so that if you're going to oppose us, maybe do it effectively. But right now, you are completely off base and you're just making yourself look bad. You bring no credibility to a conversation that is really needing to be had here. Let's see. Blah, blah, blah. Let's get into this. Okay, increased youth access. Number one, this doesn't increase youth access. Here's why not. 2 reasons. Number one, Oklahoma as a state with the patient count card. Look, everyone in Oklahoma that wants marijuana can get marijuana right now. You guys say, well, it's already recreational. Okay, so guys, why aren't we regulating it as such? That's what we're trying to do, is actually regulate it and work to prevent pediatric exposures way more effectively than what law enforcement has done the last 3 years. A lot of folks have heard us talking about it, the gas station weed, the internet weed, the DoorDash weed. All of that goes on. All of that is illegal. All of that has been allowed by the Bureau of Narcotics and our Attorney General. Police chiefs, do you even realize this is going on? Do you realize that these overdoses are coming from gas stations that are in your community? If you care about keeping marijuana, much less harmful imposter marijuana that's synthetics and are dangerous synthetics, why aren't you doing something about it? You got all the time in the world to dedicate your association time to come in and attack a state question that funds your enforcement efforts and prevents these sales. You got time to come and attack this instead of actually doing the job of cracking down on what you say we're creating. It's absolutely ridiculous. You guys seriously need to wake up, read the bill, reach out, talk to us, and do something, come up with something other than demonstrably bad talking points against your own self-interest. This is asinine. I know that we're going to be reaching out to you. I know that we're going to be reaching out to city councils. I've already been over to Oklahoma County commissioners. We're going to be talking to everyone about this because, again, we're not an out-of-state interest group. We are Oklahomans. This is by Oklahoma for Oklahoma, and we're reaching out currently in over 63 counties to make sure that everyone knows what's going on and people realize that you can have an association head that just runs out here, reacts, and wants some camera time to say a bunch of ignorant shit, and none of it's true. So, I'm going to try not to get too heated about this, but it gets really, really tough when some of this stuff is so demonstrably wrong. Expand illegal grows and cartel activity. No, it doesn't. We maintain a moratorium on licenses that's set to expire next year without legislative action. We're not creating cartels. We're not, it's just demonstrably false. You haven't even read the bill. DUI. Oh, there's going to be an explosion in DUIs. No, there's not. Everyone in Oklahoma that wants marijuana can get marijuana. You didn't see a big explosion of DUI after we passed 788. In fact, there might have been a dip in there in a couple of years. Those statistics are flat even. Let's talk about the youth use again. Let's double back on that. Okay, you cherry pick a statistic and say, well, right after 2018, all of a sudden, we have this big spike in use. We have this big in youth use. We have this spike in people going to the hospital. Duh. People will actually be honest about it now. If you ask a kid in high school, I was a kid in high school, and they asked me, do you smoke weed? Fuck no. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that out loud. Okay? No one is going to admit to doing something illegal. Once something is now legal, then guess what? If I have someone that smokes too much weed and I go to the hospital, I'm not risking arrest. So of course, now what you've got is truth in statistics. So, again, this is just really, really, really off what you guys are talking about. I wanted to hop on and just touch on those things real quick. We're going to go ahead and start putting together. A lot of you guys know, a lot of you guys have helped work on it. Responses to supply and demand, the HID to report, where they've come out and just thrown a bunch of fuzzy math that is not even in the ballpark of real at us. Okay? Not even in the ballpark of real at us. And we're going to address this as adults. I'm glad that folks are on a certain level, that folks are ready to have this conversation. If they're ready to have a conversation, not just throw out, the baseless talking points after not even having read the policy that's in front of them. So anyway, you notice we got a new background here. I'm over at, we picked up a headquarters for us here for at least the next 90 days while we're running through all of these petitions and all this signature gathering. And, we might extend that. You guys get these signatures in. We're going to need a place to operate a yes campaign out of and do those type of things, so it's a good spot. We'll probably start doing some events, maybe do an open house here at some point, but maybe I buried the headline there, but it's really cool. You guys have now, you've gotten enough done to where the level of organization and industry-wide effort you're putting out, deserves a spot to call home. So we've got that set up. We'll talk more about that before long. But I just wanted to run down, and I think I managed to get through that with only cussing twice. So that's a pretty good run for me. Apologize everyone else out there. Obviously, we're passionate. But I'm going to hop off. We've got a lot to do. I'll talk with you guys again soon. See ya.